So, you want to be a rebel, do you? Alright, let's start this off from brass tacks. If you really want to be a rebel, if you really want to bring down the corporate culture and change the way things are happening, not just in the US, of course, but the whole world, because corporations have basically shagged the planet rotten, you've got to be prepared for some personal hardship and a lot of boring tasks. Step one is harm no one, right? You do not hurt anybody. You do not threaten people. You don't do anything that could cause any sort of physical or emotional harm. See, the thing is, like Brian Thompson, the CEO, he was as much a victim of the system as any of the poor bastards that he allowed to die. Seriously, hear me out. All right? He became part of a system that let him sell out his morality and ethics for a bottom line. He felt that it was okay to make those little crosses on the paper, to draw those lines through things that he knew were going to result in hardship and death for countless people. The system made that okay. You'll have heard the term the banality of evil. That is the banality of evil right there. And the thing is, him being unalived in the street like a dog, yeah, it started a conversation, but it made no difference to the company. The shareholders literally stepped over his bleeding body. They kicked the bullet casings down the street. The meeting went ahead as planned. The new CEO had his picture up on the website within 2 hours. The system cares about the people who maintain it as little as they care about you and me. So hurting people might be satisfying in some ways, but it does nothing. And certainly, it's not good for you. Normalising hurting other people, that's no way to live. Step 2 is cancel and tell. You cancel whatever services and subscriptions you can, and you tell them why you're cancelling, and you tell everybody that you're cancelling and why you're cancelling. You tell them on all the social media, you tell them in person, you do whatever. This is part of where the personal hardship can come in for some people. It means, you do things like you cancel all those streaming subscriptions that you have. Those programs that have you paying a monthly fee, you cancel those. There are many free-to-use programs out there that can take the place of most of them. And yes, it means the pain in the ass of having to learn a new system. But these corporations have all been set up to make money, and they are doing it by screwing you out of actually owning what you pay for. So, streaming services are the classic example. You end up not owning CDs anymore. You end up not owning DVDs anymore. All that sort of stuff. And the artists get paid less. They get paid significantly less. An artist will get paid, I think, like $3 if you buy one of their CDs. Whereas if you listen to their songs on streaming, they get like 0.00066 cents per stream. Support the artists that you love. Support the films that you love. It also means they can't change them. I heard recently about someone who'd bought Batman v Superman, or who'd bought Batman, like this, Batman v Superman from one of the services, and it got upgraded to the extended cut later on. Now, that's fine if he wanted the extended cut. If he didn't want the extended cut and he wanted the original cut that he paid for, bad luck, he can't get it anymore. They end up controlling your media. But if you own it on CD or DVD and you can rip it to your computer, it's yours forever and they can't take it away. The same with these insurance companies and things like that. The average American pays between $8,000 and $12,000 a year for their health insurance. But most health insurance companies, you have a 1 in 50 chance of actually getting your money when you need it. And chances are you're going to have to fight for it. You would be better off putting that money into a bank account that you can't access easily, and you have it just going in there, and over 10 years, that's $80,000 to $120,000 for medical emergencies. All right, it's not ideal, and there's always the temptation to spend it, but let's face it, it's better off than the situation where you're paying $8,000 to $12,000 a year for a service that, when you need it, goes, nah, you had a hangnail back about 30 years ago that you didn't really put in the thing. That's a pre-existing condition, so we're not paying for your cancer treatment. The other thing is, of course, look for ethical alternatives. We pay a subscription to Tidal. They pay a lot more to artists than the others. But even Tidal, I use as a service to find artists, and then I save up and I buy their CDs. And that's how I support the artists. But I'm also paying for an ethical system. Number 3 is clog their channels. And by that I mean you flood their complaint lines. Again, this is the personal hardship part. As I said, rebellion is not sexy and exciting. It is drudgery, but it pays off in the long run. So you flood their channels. Hang on, I just want to check my notes here. Yeah, flood comment lines and reviews. Review bomb the bastards. All right. So if you're a member of United Healthcare or whatever the name of that company was, you sit there and you tell all your stories about how they've made things hard for you. And if you can find an ethical healthcare provider, a moral healthcare provider, you tell people about that. But you complain. You complain. Not just to the companies, though that is your starting point, but also to the government. You tell them about the things that you've been going through. You tell them about the problems. You make their lives hard as well. Now, all this stuff is stuff that you can do as an individual. And you might say, but what's my one voice going to do? One voice doesn't do much. But when you get enough people doing it, it starts to cause change. You think about yourself as a human being, you can trot on an ant without a problem. You find yourself standing in the middle of an ant nest, and those ants are going to overwhelm you. You're going to run screaming into the bush. So, yeah, get your friends, get your family, get everyone you can, and you start all these steps. The moment they start saying that their money's going down, the moment they start saying the review bombs, they start saying the complaints, all that makes their life really hard. And that's what you want. You want the corporations to suffer. 4, pay in pennies. Pay them legally, the smallest way that you can, the smallest, slowest way you can, without incurring fees yourself. So, if they have a shop front, you go to the bank, you get a bunch of 5-cent pieces, you pay your premiums that way. Again, it's that personal pain in the ass thing. Now, look, there are going to be people who say, I can't do that. That's fine. You do what you are able to. No one's expecting you to do things you can't do. If you have a corporate system that you are subscribed to that feeds you because you have physical disabilities and can't get out, you don't drop that. You drop what you are able. But you need to stop and think about, what is there that I can drop? So, yeah, you pay in pennies. You pay them the slowest, most inconvenient way for them that you can. One of the reasons they moved everything to credit cards and direct debit and all that is it cuts their overheads. It makes their life easier and cheaper. Start making their lives more and more difficult. And if they try to charge you for paying by cash or those other ways that are all strictly legal, again, you contact your government and you complain about it. And of course, they might say, well, move to a different service. But if you can't move to a different service, this is a way you can affect the service that you have to stay with. Quick aside, yes, this does make life harder for the staff. You don't need to be an arsehole to the staff. You need to explain, though, that you are paying in this way as a protest. You're sorry that they have to deal with it, but this is what you're going to be doing from now on. And they can take it up with their manager, and the manager can take it up higher. But you treat the staff, the ones on the phones, the ones in the stores, whatever, with respect. They are caught in the system just like you. Next up is spread the word. If you find a company that is good and moral and ethical and treats people well and treats people fairly, tell everybody. Tell everybody and encourage people to join them. I mentioned Tidal earlier. When I found out how little Spotify paid artists, I started looking around for what I considered to be an ethical alternative, and I found Tidal. Now, I don't need a streaming service. As I said, I often buy my CDs and things like that, and I've still got a huge collection of CDs. However, I like streaming services because they help me find new artists that I didn't know about. Now, I only have $10 a week spending money, so it takes me a while to save up to buy a CD. But I do. I buy DVDs, I buy CDs. I try to support things, and it means that when I want to watch something or listen to something, I can always find it. So yeah, highlight those ethical companies. Tell everybody about them. And again, the whole thing that I mentioned earlier, also tell them why you stopped using unethical companies. Okay, we're up to number 6, sabotage their data. Again, this is the pain in the ass drudgery, but it does have an effect. Right now, you can sabotage their data by doing random weird searches. Another way to do it, which is a little bit more work, is you set up false accounts with false names, false characters living in false locations, and you search for some real things and some made up things. Can you imagine what it would do to Google search data if, say, a month before Christmas, people started searching for things like banana giraffe boats as the best 2024 Christmas present, or body paint for seniors as the best 2024 Christmas present for grandparents. Stuff like that. Mess up their data. They sell this data to all sorts of companies. You poison the data, it starts to become useless to them. There are already groups complaining about poison data for AI stuff. And it's like, well, then you should have humans overseeing it. AI on its own is not trustworthy because it can be easily manipulated. So go out and start manipulating the data. Come up with outrageous search things. Tell your friends to do those outrageous search things and poison the data. I didn't move because it's too hard to get up. Number 7, sticker the streets. Put stickers around, talking about companies, their unethical practices. Chalk art. In Sydney, there was a guy who was highly religious who would go around and in beautiful penmanship would write the word eternity on the streets of Sydney. And he did this for decades. And even now, he's kind of celebrated for it. Now, that's not going to happen with any of us. But it shows that that message can get out there. Imagine if you went onto every street corner and it had some of the things that I've suggested so far, like cancel your subscriptions. Every street corner, cancel your subscriptions. It works the same way that advertising works, in that you see it, and it starts to put the idea in your head, do I really need all those subscriptions? Again, the individual action is pretty tiny, but all this stuff is scalable, and as it scales up, it starts to have more impact. So yeah, interesting side note, way back around World War I, or just after World War I, people started to realise that the propaganda that was used in wars could be used to sell products. And that's the way a lot of product sales is done. It's using propaganda techniques that were developed to win wars. Yeah, the more you know about history, the more interesting and horrific things get. Number 8, meme the machine. So mock their failures online. Mock everything you can about them. I just saw a video of Amazon bosses being asked about strike action. They were being asked why their workers were striking. And they kept on replying about, we support their rights to strike. We support their voice. And the chap that was asking the questions kept saying, yes, fine. You're not answering the question. Why are your workers striking? You say that you're a fantastic company to work for. Why are your workers striking? And they kept answering with, well, they're exercising their rights and we support those rights. That's not what I'm asking. Why are your workers striking? And they eventually had to admit that they didn't know. And I mean, this comes down to the media softballing politicians and companies and all these people all the bloody time. When they refuse to answer the question, the media lets it go. The journalists let it go. So, but you can meme that sort of stuff. You know, you can get photos of those bosses or CEOs or managers or whatever the hell they are, and have, why are your workers striking? Da 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 da. Why are your workers striking? Da 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 da. Why are your workers striking? Da 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 da. Why are your workers striking? We don't know, because that's what they said at the end. They basically didn't know, or at least they wouldn't admit that they knew. So you meme it, you get it out there, because those memes, they spread. Right? You could meme the fact that, you know, shareholders stepped over the body of Brian Thompson and didn't even check to see if he needed help. They didn't care, did not care about him. And as I said earlier, they don't care about their own. They sure as hell don't care about you. You're the 1 in 50 chance of actually getting what you've maybe spent decades paying for. So you meme all that stuff. You get it out there. You know, there'll be some people who take your ideas. You know, maybe your ideas aren't that big, but someone will see it and someone will get inspired. Maybe they'll come up with a more refined version that's punchier. But the starting point is you doing the boring stuff. Go for it. 9, which sort of carries on from the one I just finished, is crash their PR. Now, I don't mean do anything illegal. You don't do anything illegal, and I'll come back to that later. But you go to their PR and you ask the embarrassing questions, right? One way you can do that is you basically buy a single share in a big company, and then you get invites to shareholders meetings. And you can ask embarrassing questions like, now, in the last year, we've made this much money by not paying out policies to hundreds of thousands of people and letting them live in pain and fear and letting them die. I just want to know, are we planning on upping that next year so that, you know, more people die or live in pain or go bankrupt? You can do stuff like that. You can ask the embarrassing questions, and, as I was saying in the last one, you can also stick to your guns. Right? They might kick you out, but you've embarrassed them. You've made their public spectacle a spectacle. So, yeah, you know, turn their feel-good PR campaigns into nightmares. Make it so they don't want anyone there. Actually, because I'm a shit stirrer, I just thought of an additional one with that one. Imagine you've got half a dozen folks like yourself there, and one gets up and he asks the embarrassing questions, and he gets let out. And then a little bit later, someone else stands up and asks other embarrassing questions. Or you can just stand up as a concerned shareholder and say, you know, that person who was up before, who was asking about how many people we can kill next year to make more money, yeah, I'm wondering, it's got me thinking about the ethics of this company. Aren't we here to help people? You know, you can phrase it like that, and you can have more people. You can have these stooges in the audience that stand up and start to make things worse for the guys on stage. Just think about that one. 10. I'm not moving because I'm lazy. Fight for others. Most of you have heard that famous poem about, you know, they came for these people, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't one of those people. Then they came for those people, and I didn't say anything, and da 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 da. And then they came for me, and there was no one to stand up for me. All right? You fight for the most vulnerable people in your society. Again, it's the boring stuff. You vote for the most vulnerable people in your society, even if they are people you hate. I can't state that strongly enough, because here's the thing. The way corporations and the government and anyone in power treats the most vulnerable people in a society is how they would treat you if they could. And every right and every protection they erode for somebody else is another step towards them eroding your rights and protections. So if you're not going to do it for good reasons, for ethical reasons, for moral reasons, for reasons of kindness, do it for self-preservation. Because it may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but sooner or later, all those people you've allowed to get screwed over, you're going to become one of them. And look, we've already seen this, again, with the health insurance and the CEOs and all that sort of stuff. Because everyone thought, oh, well, those people got disallowed, but I'll be okay. And for most of them, they find out when the time comes, they're not one of the 50. They're not okay. So you fight for the most vulnerable people in your society. You fight for the disabled. You fight for the immigrants. You fight for the kids. You fight for the women. You fight for anybody who needs fighting for. Again, it's the boring stuff, but that's how societies change. Number 11, be legal. Do nothing illegal. You check what you're doing. You make sure that what you're doing isn't illegal where you are, because laws have been changed to make some things that shouldn't be illegal, illegal. You know, it's like them starting to change protest laws. In some places, you've got to actively ask about, being able to protest, and you've got to confirm that it's not going to be a violent protest, and all this, all these things to stop people from doing what I'm suggesting you do. So yeah, all right, that's kind of it. Those are the 11 things. I'll look at my little list here and just go over them again. Harm no one, cancel and tell, clog their channels, pay in pennies, spread the word, sabotage data, sticker the streets, meme the machine, crash their PR, fight for others, and be legal. Again, the revolution isn't necessarily exciting, but doing it this way is legal. Innocent people don't get hurt. Victims of the system don't get hurt. And the more people who do it, the more impact it has. But seriously, with the corporations and stuff, you're paying, a lot of these people, you're paying for nothing. And that's your starting point. Stop paying them for nothing. And where possible, where you can, stop supporting corrupt, immoral, unethical businesses. Cheers, my freaky darlings.